Hello and welcome. The most highly decorated Australian serviceman in World War II, Hughie Edwards, was born in Fremantle, my closest city. Air Commodore Sir Hughie Edwards was born in 1914 to Welsh parents who had immigrated to Australia in 1909. 97% of all Australians can trace their lineage back to migration. At the onset of the Great Depression, and being from a poor family, he had to leave school at age 14, working in a horse stable and a factory before enlisting in the Australian Army in 1934. Next year, he was selected for flying training with the Royal Australian Air Force at RAAF Point Cook before deployment to England. In August 1938, Edwards was flying a Blenheim aircraft near the Scottish border when he flew into a storm at 7,500 feet. When the ailerons froze, the aircraft was forced lower. Edwards ordered his navigator and rear gunner to bail out of the aircraft, and then he jumped out, but his parachute became entangled with the aircraft's radio mast, and he sustained head and leg injuries on landing. In May 1941, Edwards became the commanding officer of 105 Squadron. At that time, the squadron was engaged in a series of daylight operations against Germany and the occupied countries. The principal targets were enemy shipping, power installations, shipbuilding yards, locomotives, steelworks, and marshalling yards. On the 4th of July 1941, Edwards led a daylight attack, called Operation Wreckage, against the port of Bremen, one of the most heavily defended towns in Germany. Edwards' force of 12 Blenheims attacked at a height of about 50 feet through telephone wires and high-voltage power lines. The bombers successfully penetrated fierce anti-aircraft fire and a dense balloon barrage. However, further fire over the port itself resulted in the loss of 4 of the attacking force. Edwards brought his remaining aircraft safely back, although all had been hit, and his own Blenheim had been hit over 20 times. His actions in the raid earned him the Victoria Cross. The citation read in part, "Wing Commander Edwards has repeatedly displayed gallantry of the highest order in pressing home bombing attacks from very low heights against strongly defended objectives." This attack had to be made in daylight, and there were no clouds to afford concealment. On the 6th of December 1942, Edwards participated in a daylight bombing raid on the Philips factory at Eindhoven in the Netherlands. Despite heavy opposition, the bombers successfully damaged or destroyed many of their targets. Edwards was the first airman to receive the Victoria Cross, Distinguished Service Order, and Distinguished Flying Cross in the Second World War. With the end of the European campaigns in sight, Edwards was transferred to Ceylon as Group Captain Bomber Operations. Edwards continued his career in the post-war RAF at various bases, including Kuala Lumpur and RAF Habani in Iraq during the Suez Crisis in 1956. He returned to Britain in 1958 and was appointed as aide-de-camp to Queen Elizabeth in 1960 before retiring in 1963 and returning to Australia. In 1974, Queen Elizabeth appointed him Governor of Western Australia and knighted him. For our overseas friends, some explanations are needed. Australia became a British colony when Captain Arthur Phillip, commanding 11 ships, sailed into Port Jackson in January 1788 to establish a penal settlement. Americans had won their independence from Britain and so refused to take further convicts from them. Phillip was Australia's first governor, answerable to the British Crown. So it was for each state colony. 113 years after Phillip's arrival, on the 1st of January 1901, Australia became a nation, enabling the 6 colonies to federate and collectively govern in their own right as the Commonwealth of Australia. Each state is a constitutional monarchy with the Queen represented by a governor. Above them, the Governor-General facilitates the work of the Commonwealth Parliament and Government, dissolving Parliament and issuing writs for a federal election. This doesn't sit well for many Australians, as evidenced in 1975 when Governor-General Sir John Kerr sacked the democratically elected Prime Minister Gough Whitlam.
If I had removed the Governor-General surreptitiously, I'd be as popular and respected as Kerr became for removing me surreptitiously.
Australia can claim to have one of the most diverse populations of any country. Just 26% of us now claim English ancestry. It wasn't until 1986 that we stopped using the English Privy Council as Australia's final court of appeal. As for knighthoods, they were abolished by the Hawke Labor government also in 1986. Thus, Sir Hughie Edwards, whose parents were humble Welsh immigrants, became the Queen's man in Western Australia until he retired in 1975. Will Australia cut the umbilical cord from Mother England in the future and elect an Australian to be head of state? Watch this space.